This book will actually make you tons of money in the 21st century. Quite insightful, has a lot of details about how to make money in the digital era. Okay, so it's so okay to read books like The Richest Man in Babylon, to read books like Secret of the Millionaire's Mind, Psychology of Money. They have their place. But then, if you want to have a peep into the future, to see what the future holds as it has to do with making money in the 21st century and in this Gen Z era, you may want to read this book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant, and I'm going into it. It happened to be the first read of 2024 for me, and I chose it after I had listened to John Obidi, a business expert, talked about this part of the scripture that talked about that the race is not to the swift, the battle to the strong, nor it's to the men of wisdom, but then time and chance happens to them all. He said that definition of strength, wisdom, and being swift keep changing with time. So that somebody is winning is because they understand the seasons and the time. So when I saw below the subtitle of the book saying it's a book that will teach you something about wealth and happiness, I knew that it was a book I should definitely try. And yes, it's actually a book that I did try and I enjoyed it. So let's go into it. I would focus more on the wealth part in this particular series. Let's say this is the part one of this. So the Almanac of Naval Ravikant is a book on wealth creation and on happiness. So the subtitle, like I said, teaches you how to make wealth, to make money, and also to be happy, right? And this book actually is a book that is quite fascinating for me. The reason is because Naval Ravikant happens to be someone who at first didn't think about writing a book. But Eric Jeggerson decided to take up his tweets. He came into Twitter, or Naval Ravikant started tweeting in the year 2007, if I'm not mistaken. So Eric Jeggerson took up these tweets and started arranging them into books, into a book. And Eric, in his explaining or in his trying to explain about this book, said, whatever errors you encounter in this book is strictly mine, not that of Naval Ravikant, because he knows and he has also seen through fair judgment that Ravikant rather is able to explain himself by himself. But now he's the one gathering the tweets, gathering his information and writing them into tweets. Then another thing that actually made me take on this book is the fact that Naval Ravikant actually said he wasn't going to earn a dime from this book, right? And decided that the PDF should be for free for public domain and the hard copy can be sold, but he wasn't going to make money from it. So I'm assuming that Eric is the one who made money from this. And if you want to know who Naval Ravikant is, he's an Indian man that came into New York and really did make a lot of money. And his story is quite humbling because I'm going to start from his story. I'm going to start sharing from his stories. And then, okay, this book was published in 2022, right? And it has 239 pages. So that means that if you want to read it in 7 days, you should be reading at least 35 pages of the book, right? And if you want to complete it in a full month cycle, then you should be reading 7 or 8 pages of the book. Very simple. So in a month, you are able to finish this the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And this is already this is the third week of January, or is it the second week? Well, my memory it's failing me in that regards. But then, once you pick up the book in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on your timing, if you're able to just divide the pages by the number of days you want to read it, you'll be able to achieve that. So, Ravan Navikant, let me start from his story, because his story for me is something I could relate with, not because it's something I typically experienced, right? Even though I know that I'm not from the upper class family, I'm from a middle class family. I can't categorically say my parents are poor, neither can I categorically say they are rich. So we're somewhere in between the that strata. But then, because I had read a book, Gifted Hands by Ben Carson, I could just tie them together. Ravan Ravikant came into the New York with his parents at a very young age. Him and his brother, and his father and mom. Well, a lot of things happened. They divorced. So Ravan Ravikant's mom had to take on the responsibility of taking care of these two children and raising them themselves. So raising them herself. And you'll see from the whole thing that it wasn't like he had a pleasant upbringing. So Ravan Ravikant had a very humble upbringing, right? So that is to say that he wasn't raised from a very rich family. The mom had to work hard to ensure that they fed and all that. But there was something instructive Rava noted in his growing up. The fact that the library was his second best home. So he would always stop by the library to read books and learn. So library was really something that helped him. And he ventured into lots of businesses. He said his first job was an illegal job in a canteen where he was washing the plates and trying to serve people. It was actually an illegal job, but then he also proceeded to work in some other legal firms, opened his own business, and today he is an angel investor in over 200 businesses. So he's making a lot of money from compound interest. You see that when he was talking about leveraging. And in one of his statements, he said, "I was born poor and miserable, and I'm pretty well off, and I'm very happy I worked at those." So if you look at the times of Ravan Ravikant, it's someone you would want to learn from. So he thought about sharing his wisdom on Twitter. So he made them a Twitter storm. It was while reading this book that I had to go search for him on Twitter and then follow, because I also want to see how I can learn directly from him. So in Building Wealth, he said how to get rich without getting lucky. And in talking about how to get rich without getting lucky, he said that being rich is not just about money. It's a skill that you learn. So it's a skill that you learn. It's not about money, because some persons think that when you want to get rich, it's about the money you are earning. No, it's about skills, a skill that you learn. He mentioned that it has to do with getting to know the right opportunity to put in your money, getting to know the right thing to do, and getting to know the right people to do it with, especially for long term. And he says something that was quite instructive, which is, do not work with those who are pessimistic, because their prophecy eventually becomes reality. So even though you want to hire people, if you want to do any form of business, do not hire pessimists. And so one of the driving force of business for him is positivity, and having that consciousness that whatever you're putting your mind in will work. Now, let me go back to explaining what an angel investor is. An angel investor is someone who puts in money into businesses with the hope that those businesses will eventually bring in returns. It's a very serious high risk venture. The money put into it is called capital venture. So it's a very high risk business venture, because the truth is most of those businesses don't eventually go to thrive. But Ravan Ravikant has become a brand name because he's able to spot businesses that have good potential and that can thrive. So in talking about getting rich, he talked about the fact that you should learn to productize yourself. Productizing yourself means that in whatever you are doing, you should eventually make yourself look like a product such that it can be bought. So your time should be productized. Everything should have a price tag around it. He talked about the fact that when you productize yourself, it means that you have specific skills that someone else does not have, and that is why people are gravitating towards you. Knowledge, there is all these pieces, you combine them into this two word, which is to productize yourself. In productizing yourself, you are putting out your uniqueness, your leverage, and every form of your opportunity in such packages that allow people to pay for the value you provide, right? So if I am somebody who is knowledgeable at something, I should be able to make it into things that people can actually pay and buy into. As much as I'm giving those values for free, because even now Ravikant gives a lot of his values for free, especially on Twitter. But then I should learn to know that I should productize myself. So what's the difference between wealth and money? Money is the value money is what you exchange for the value you bring to the market. But wealth is beyond money. So in talking about money, he talked about the fact that wealth is specific knowledge. It's something that people outside, they are paying you because that is the value you bring. If they know how to do it, they wouldn't want to pay you. So your specific knowledge is a form of wealth. And in trying to list specific knowledge, I found it interesting that he talked about the fact that gossip can be a specific knowledge. And in explaining gossip as a specific knowledge, he said that is a form of wealth rather, because you can be able to dig up stories and people can pay you to be able to dig up stories, to blog for all the stories and then get paid for it. And we see it a lot of times in our society. So people who play games, musical talents, specific knowledge are actually things that people would definitely want to pay you for, because why? They don't know how to do it. So if somebody knows how to do what you're trying to sell, it means that that's your skill, or whatever you are doing is at a serious risk. Ravikant, in trying to explain what can make you money in this time and age, noted that continuous learning and education is what anyone who wants to be at the forefront of wealth creation should hold on to. So you have to be a all-time learner, and that means that you are not depending on what you learned in school, because whatever is working previously is most likely not working now. That previously your certificate could just get you a job and you are there, so you're being promoted on what you have gotten from school. But right now what is becoming effective is that new knowledge keeps coming every time, so you have to be abreast of what the new knowledge is per time. So continuous learning is one skill anyone who wants to make real wealth in this dispensation needs to hold on to. Then he talked about leveraging. Leveraging is where you are sleeping and you are able to make money, where you are practically resting, you're on vacation and all that, you are able to make money. So leveraging is a part or an aspect where you can make money. And in leveraging, he said there are three ways you can leverage. One is with labor, where you have a business, you're managing, you're the one providing judgment and all that for why the business is becoming thriving, but then there are people who are doing the work for you. So you're leveraging using the human labor. Then the second part is leveraging through your wealth or your money. So you invest your money while the money compounds. He talked about compound interest. Yes, I'll get into that shortly. Then the last part is leveraging through using products that you have monetized. Is the modern way of leveraging. So you have podcasts, you have books, you have materials that people can buy, so they are making you money while you're sleeping. So he talked about that you have to learn technology. Technology has to be the biggest way to making wealth, and you have to learn it. He said that the two ways to be able to earn from technology is to learn either how to build technology or how to sell in the tech industry, how to sell tech products or how to be able to build it. So you have to either be a builder or the one who sells. Then when he talked about compounding, that in building wealth you have to pay attention to compounding. Compounding has to do with the fact that whatever you are doing just keeps multiplying little by little. And he said that even in your relationship with people, it keeps compounding, because you have friends that keep giving, that they keep returning. You have customers that because they've trusted you and they've built trust with you over time, that they keep coming back to patronize you because your name is becoming a household name that they can trust and they can always depend on. So you have to learn that in compounding, you have to build good reputation with people, you have to build good relationship with people, and in compounding, you have to know that making money has to do with the money multiplying by over time. So you have to learn to make good judgment. In talking about good judgment, he said in learning good judgment, you must learn the basics. So, and then he encouraged the learning of mathematics, the basics of anything. So he said it's not even as important as knowing the bigger picture of a lot of things as it is important as knowing the basic truth and the basic things. So if you don't know the foundation of a particular thing you're going into, you're going to make a lot of wrong judgments. So in making right judgment, knowing the basics also matters. Following your instinct and your intuition is very important, because sometimes your instinct and your intuition just lets you know that this judgment I'm making is wrong, and sometimes we just discard it, but it's quite important in our making the right judgment. And there's a part of the book that I must not fail to mention. The part of the book that I must not fail to mention is the part of accountability. He talked about the fact that people will trust you more when you are the face of the brand. So people will want to put in their money into any business where they know who they can hold when the business fails. So they want to see who is behind the brand, who is behind the business. So you have to take the risks to be accountable, to take on the fall when things fail, to take on the to take on both the wins and to take on both the part where the business is winning. So in that part, he says that the people who have the ability to fail in public under their own name actually gain a lot of power. So in this dispensation and in this time, it's not a time where you have to put your brand and your brand is faceless. It's a time where people want to know who is behind this product, who are the people behind this, and that you gain more power, more authority in a field when your face is behind your brand, because you are taking on risk and people are able to trust you to feel that you have made the right form of judgment. So let's go over the things that can actually make you money in this 21st century from this book, the Almanack of from the view of the Almanack of from the view of this book, the Almanack of Ravikant. Like I said initially when I started out this book, it's a book centered around the tweets of Naval Ravikant, written by Eric Jurgensen. So in the book, it opens up with his story first, telling us that the foundation to wealth and prosperity and riches is not in how you started, but in how well you are able to put in the work. So he mentioned that he started out as someone who didn't really have much, but then over time he's been able to build wealth and happiness, and that is because he worked for it. The second part that you have to pay attention to is that he actually was somebody who invested in knowledge. He visited the library, he stayed in the library. Library was his major source of learning, and he talked a lot about the fact that trying to learn is one of the major key points that would enable someone earn a lot or become wealthy in this dispensation. The second part is the part where he talked about that you have to productize yourself. Ensure that you have products that is selling while you're asleep, while you're working, any time of the day. So you have to learn leveraging, allowing yourself to earn while you're on vacation and while you are doing other things. And we talked about the three forms of leveraging, which is labor, using the labor aspect, using the money, and also using products. So productize yourself, make them into digital products, and learn tech. In learning about tech, he said two parts where you have to how to earn money from technology is to build it or to learn how to sell it. Now, like I said, this is just like a bits and bits of what is in the book. It's not the totality of all. He talked about accountability, showing your face as the face behind the brand, right? And he talked about the fact you have to learn and have continuous knowledge. In talking about luck, there are 4 types of luck. I would want you to go read the book, because when you read the book, you are able to understand the 4 types of luck. How do you actually get lucky, right? In getting lucky, you have to put in the work. But how do you get lucky? There are 4 ways that you can get lucky. When you get the answer to that, you can help me type it in the comment section. That should be your assignment that would make you go read the book, because the truth is, luck has to do with opportunities. When you create opportunities for yourself, you get lucky. But sometimes those opportunities come to you. What are the key factors that allows you to get lucky? You find that answer right in the book. For the part of happiness, I think I'll come back to that in our next review. That will be next week. Thank you so much for following me and for listening. I trust you've learned something that will be of great use to your own business. Thank you.